Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, March 21st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. They were deemed essential workers throughout the height of the pandemic, and today union grocery workers began voting on whether to authorize a strike against three major chains. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen with the issues, including allegations of unfair labor practices.
It's finally time to get what we deserve from the company.
Devin Hannigan works for Vons, and he says during the pandemic, grocery workers have been on the front line putting their health at risk. Now he says they want to be compensated accordingly. Hannigan says it's harder now than ever to be a grocery store worker because of the abuse from customers unhappy with the pandemic restrictions.
No matter what side you stand on, whatever your politics are, that's being brought into the grocery stores. You're now becoming someone who has to mediate between different customers.
Contract negotiations stalled between United Food and Commercial Workers and the owners of Ralph's, Vons, and Albertson on March 6th. Workers want improved safety and security and better wages.
These employers, Ralph's, Vons, Albertsons, have made millions of dollars off the pandemic, and it's time to share with the workers.
Todd Walters is the president of UFCW Local 135. He says with the minimum wage increase, some workers with 10 to 20 years of experience are making as little as $2 more than newly hired employees. As of the beginning of the year, California's minimum wage is $15 an hour. Ralph says its average employees make $19 an hour. The grocery chains are offering a pay increase of 60 cents an hour each year for the next 3 years. In a statement, Ralph says, "We are investing more than ever before in our associates by expanding our industry-leading benefits, including continuing education, tuition reimbursement, training, and development, health, and wellness, as well as continued investment in wages." Hannigan says the 60-cent proposal is insulting considering what workers have faced in the past 2 years.
And I know we've earned this. We've earned a livable wage, and that's not what they're proposing. And that's why we're here. We're not going to stand for that.
The strike authorization vote continues in San Diego through Wednesday. Voting continues in other Southern California counties until Saturday. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Today marks the 2-year anniversary of Title 42, a controversial Trump-era policy that blocks asylum at the border. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis shows us activists in San Diego and Tijuana are calling for it to be revoked.
And Title 42! And Title 42!
Title 42 was first implemented by the Trump administration in March 2020. It allows officials to use the pandemic as a justification for turning away asylum seekers at the southern border. But most of the pandemic restrictions along the border have now been lifted. Activists are calling for an end to Title 42, which has kept thousands of vulnerable migrants from getting a fair hearing for their asylum cases. Lindsay Kozlowski is the executive director of the Immigrant Defenders Law Center.
Today, the U.S. government continues to unlawfully expel individuals and families with absolutely no due process.
More recently, border officials have exempted Ukrainian war refugees from Title 42. Kozlowski says migrants from Central America and the Caribbean deserve that same exemption.
But I think we know that there has been a systematic blocking of black and brown asylum seekers at the border, and that is the root of Title 42.
Lillian Serrano is the co-chair of the Southern Border Communities Coalition. She says Title 42 perpetuates stereotypes that certain immigrants are a public health threat.
More than a year of the now Biden-Harris administration, we continue to see this racist notion that black and brown immigrants, asylum seekers, are bringing disease across the border.
Serrano is among the many who say the continuation of Title 42 is an example of the Biden administration failing to fulfill a campaign promise to make our immigration system more humane.
All of us remember that's part of his campaign promise of the Biden and Harris administration was to restore asylum, to bring back humanity and dignity into the immigration system. We don't see that.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
The images out of Ukraine are heart-wrenching. The city of Mariupol is refusing to surrender today, even after the bombing of a building labeled in huge letters, children. As Amy Kiley reports, the U.S. is stepping up its efforts to help.
Убивали всех людей. Это сволочи, это гады, блядь, паразиты.
Russian President Vladimir Putin seems undeterred by increasing civilian casualties in Ukraine.
This is really disgusting.
This week, the White House is expanding its efforts to help. President Joe Biden is holding a call with European leaders this morning. Then he's talking with American CEOs about the war. On Wednesday, he travels to Europe for an emergency NATO summit. He'll visit Warsaw, Poland Friday for talks with that country's president about Russia's war in Ukraine. And he's got another invitation.
Why don't he can visit Kyiv next week as a symbol of our solidarity?
The Ukrainian capital is a war zone right now, so Biden does not plan to stop there. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has his own ideas of what he'd like in the president's agenda.
So what I'd like to see the president do is to reassure our Eastern Bloc allies.
The Ukrainian people are begging Biden and the U.S. to offer more support. The besieged city of Mariupol refused Russia's demand to surrender today. The Ukrainian president says he's ready to talk to Putin at any time, but he's worried if talks fail.
That would mean that this is a third world war.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Tonight, there are Ukrainian refugees who have found their way to safety here in San Diego County. A teacher with 3 children and other family members got out with only half an hour to gather their belongings. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has their story.
This is distance learning to the extreme. Olga Kovalchuk speaks 5 languages and is a teacher and translator back in her hometown of Cherkasy, Ukraine. Now she's a kindergarten teacher to her 6-year-old son Ruslan, using internet lessons and Wi-Fi in this Carmel Valley kitchen.
Now we don't go to any school here. I would like my children to be permitted to school as quickly as possible and to adapt.
Olga fled Ukraine with 3 of her children, her father, brother, and their families. The other family members made it to Los Angeles, while Olga and her kids made it here to San Diego County, traveling 6,400 miles. Anything to get away from the war and the prison of their basement.
Some basements now in Ukraine are equipped with Wi-Fi and internet, and maybe there are some possibilities to learn sitting in the basement.
Her family is now living with Carolyn and Zach O'Neill in their 4-bedroom house in Carmel Valley. The O'Neills are empty nesters with 2 grown children and extra space they were happy to share with refugees on the run to safety.
It's just nice having the little kids and Max in the house and just trying to find them. There's never going to be a normal routine for them again, I don't believe, but just to bring some normalcy.
But it's not just us. Everybody wants to help. We just need to find how do we do it, you know, in a loving way.
Olga's oldest son, Max, is 15 years old. He speaks English and is doing his best to adapt. His 9-year-old sister, Sophia, is missing. The day they fled, she was with her father and did not make it to the Ukrainian border in time.
I miss my friends, I miss Ukraine, but now I'm not in danger, and my family is in safety.
Despite the tragedy unfolding in Ukraine, there is hope and some joy in this family's story. Olga and her son Max say they are thrilled to be in the beautiful Southern California weather they've heard so much about. The family will stay with the O'Neills temporarily. Olga's next goal is her children's education. Then she needs to find a job.
I can't predict the tomorrow's day because the situation can change rapidly and radically. We believe in God, and I hope that everything will be okay. We just pray.
2 families and faith will help make this home for now. MG Perez, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego says 90% of its workforce is now fully vaccinated after making it mandatory for employment. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria says before the mandate, only 69% of city employees were vaccinated. The city also announced plans to accommodate employees who requested religious or medical exemptions. Around 790 employees will receive notices that their requests were approved, while another 200 are still under review. They'll be required to undergo free weekly COVID-19 testing. Could another COVID booster shot be on the horizon in the near future? That might be decided on April 6th as vaccine advisors meet with the FDA to determine the need. They'll look at a process for selecting boosters aimed at specific variants and whether an annual shot like a flu shot would be feasible. There's no planned vote for the meeting, and specific products that might need authorization will not be discussed. A historic day as President Joe Biden looks to put the first African-American woman on the Supreme Court. If confirmed, Ketanji Brown Jackson would fill the seat vacated by retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. Chris Nguyen reports from Capitol Hill.
Ketanji Brown Jackson in the hot seat for the first day of confirmation hearings before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. If confirmed, she'll become the first black woman to serve on our nation's highest court.
You are a living witness to the fact that in America, all is possible.
Monday, offering a chance for President Joe Biden's Supreme Court pick to introduce herself to the panel.
If I am confirmed, I commit to you that I will work productively to support and defend the Constitution.
And an opportunity for all 22 members of the committee to deliver opening statements.
I'm hoping that we can have a hearing that's respectful, that's informative, that's challenging.
The real test will come Tuesday when questioning begins. Jackson is no stranger to the process, though. As a federal judge, this is her fourth time sitting before the committee. Democrats praising her extensive experience on the bench.
If you were confirmed, you would be the first ever federal public defender to sit on the court.
While Republicans look to grill Jackson about her judicial record.
I want to know about your judicial philosophy, because people on the left, the far extreme part of the left, believe that you were the best bet.
Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
Justice Clarence Thomas, the longest-serving member of the U.S. Supreme Court, is hospitalized with flu-like symptoms. A spokesperson for the court says the 73-year-old justice does not have COVID-19. His absence comes as the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments today through Wednesday. While Thomas does not plan to take part remotely, he will review the transcripts and listen to audio of the oral arguments. Early voting is underway in a special election for the 80th Assembly District covering the southern part of San Diego, Chula Vista, and National City. KPBS Big City Heights reporter Jacob Ayers says 2 Democrats and 1 Republican are in the race, all with different visions for the future of San Diego's South Bay.
The Assembly District 80 seat opened up in January when Lorena Gonzalez resigned to take a job with the California Labor Federation. 3 candidates are in the race: Democrats David Alvarez and Georgette Gomez, and Republican Lincoln Picard. Gonzalez has endorsed Gomez.
I am proud to have the support of former Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, somebody that did a lot in behalf of our district.
For Gomez, this is a return to politics. She was president of the San Diego City Council and ran an unsuccessful campaign for Congress in 2020. During that run, she was criticized for not reporting $100,000 of income on her tax returns, and that criticism is being made again in this election.
There wasn't me trying to do a roundaround on taxes. It was literally a mistake, an intentional mistake, but I fixed it right away.
But she says that the current anti-Gomez mailers are being pushed by oil, tow truck, and insurance companies, funding one of her opponents, David Alvarez. She says that's because some of the key points from her platform focus on the climate crisis, as well as affordable housing and income inequality.
On advancing solutions to improve our transit system, to continue bringing more affordable housing, even as someone that is in the private sector now. To me, that's where my commitment and what I'm grounded on, and that's never going to change no matter where I'm at.
Campaign finance records show Alvarez has received donations from those special interests that Gomez mentions, among others. He says Gomez is being supported by Sacramento politicians who don't want things to change. In a written statement, he told KPBS they are doing this because they know they can control her, that if she is elected, nothing will change. By contrast, I have run a 100% positive campaign based on the issues. Like Gomez, Alvarez is a Democrat, a former San Diego City Council member, and a native of Barrio Logan.
People feel like Sacramento often forgets them, and they want to make sure that education's a priority, that higher education's a priority, that crime gets addressed, as our South Bay communities and San Diego have seen an increase in crime over the last year.
Lincoln Picard is the third candidate in the race, a Republican running in a heavily Democratic district.
The odds are against me. The smart money will be on one of the other candidates because there's such a disparity in the demographics are totally different in our district.
His platform focuses on the cost of living and running a company in California, along with education and water management, among other issues.
It would take a lot of voters out there that are sick and tired of the Democratic rules and regulations, which are driving so many businesses out of our state, which means they're taking jobs with them.
The special election is only to fill out the remainder of Lorena Gonzalez's term. If one candidate gets 50% plus one of the vote, they'll win the seat outright. But if no one does, there will be a runoff on June 7th, the same day as a regular election for the next term, which begins in December and covers a redrawn District 80 thanks to the last census. The same three candidates are running in that race too. Here's a last word from each on the issues that matter to them, starting with David Alvarez.
Education, crime on the rise, homelessness issues, they matter to the people in both the old district and the new district. So we're talking about the same issues, we're having those conversations, and it just means that in June we'll have to find a way to talk to more people.
Georgette Gomez.
At the end of the day, it's about building healthy communities, making sure that there's housing that is affordable, making sure that people have clean air, making sure that there are better jobs and our education system is robust.
And Lincoln Picard.
If you care about gas taxes and you care about school choice, you care about the Second Amendment, you care about some of these real important values that make America what it is, I ask for your vote.
Early voting is underway now and runs through April 4th, or voters can go to the polls on April 5th. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Poway's primary source of water is on its way to being replaced. Today, Poway Mayor Steve Voss was joined by Congressman Scott Peters to announce $1 million of federal funding to go toward the infrastructure project called the Clearwell Bypass System. The Clearwell Reservoir, which is what the city currently uses, was built in 1964. It's the same reservoir from which a water contamination event occurred in 2019, forcing residents to boil water.
Folks expect to turn on their faucet at home and get clean water. This will help us to be able to provide that now and for generations to come. There's nothing more important than that.
The project, which is estimated to cost $7.3 million, will start with an intricate bypass system to store treated water. Once that is complete, the old water system can be taken offline and replaced.
We're tracking a change in the pattern here in Southern California, and I should say really across much of the West Coast. We're going to be warming up over the next couple of days. Temperatures will be on the rise, and we are looking to stay dry. It doesn't look like we're going to get any storm systems that are going to press as far south as Southern California. Temperatures tonight getting down into the mid-40s from Oceanside out towards Escondido, upper 40s in El Cajon, 57 degrees for your overnight low in San Diego, Monday night into Tuesday. Tuesday's a nice dry and mild day. There's still some lingering rain and snow showers across the four corners, but for us, Tuesday is a nice quiet day. Temperatures getting up into the upper 70s for you in Oceanside, 75 in San Diego. We're in the mid-80s in Borrego Springs, and in the mountains, we're warming into the upper 50s, and we're going to continue that warming trend as we move forward. So the mid to later part of the week, big ridge in the jet stream that brings in this surge of warmth for some. Highs are going to be 10 to 20 degrees above normal, and the possibility of record challenging heat is certainly on the table. But keep this in mind, this could also worsen the drought with no real significant rain on the way, and we did not have a whole lot of rain during the months of January, February, and now March. So we desperately need the rain, but it's not in the forecast. Near the coast, temperatures go from the 70s into the 80s from Tuesday into Wednesday. We'll hug that 80-degree mark as we move towards Thursday. And then it looks like a little bit of a cool down perhaps Friday into Saturday. Further inland, temperatures going from the mid-80s to the lower 80s by the time we get to Friday and Saturday. So not much in the way of change here. Plenty of sunshine is on the way. In the mountains, we go from the 50s up into the 60s, and we stay there from Thursday all the way through next Saturday. And in the deserts, temperatures warming up quite significantly from the 80s into the low to mid-90s as we close out this work week and head into next weekend. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
Today is World Down Syndrome Day. 6,000 babies a year are born with Down syndrome, which is the result of having an extra chromosome. World Down Syndrome Day is meant to raise awareness as well as to urge people to push for inclusion and rights for those with Down syndrome. The pace of deployment during the pandemic has strained military families, according to a new survey. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says childcare and unemployment are among the top issues.
The last couple of years have been challenging for nearly everyone, but military families have had their own lingering difficulties, which often go unnoticed by the rest of the community. Kathy Ross-Duquet is CEO of Blue Star Families. They advocate for military families. She says Guard and Reserves have been stretched thin.
They've gone to help with cleanup for COVID or helping to build hospitals. They've gone to the southern border. We even have Guard teaching substitute school in New Mexico because COVID has closed down too many schools. You got wildfires. The Guard is more deployed than any time since World War II, and many of American citizens just don't know that.
Each year, the group surveys military families. Fallout from deployments were the top two concerned among Guard and Reserves. Among active duty, the pandemic made it particularly difficult for spouses to find work, especially if they changed bases.
We need to solve the child care issue. You go to the bottom of the waiting list every time you move. If you have got a 9-month waiting list and then you're in town for 6 more months and then you move again and you're at the bottom of that 9-month waiting list, that's no good. We need better ways to help people around that problem.
One of the ideas to get around that is to hold spaces at child care centers for military families. And sailors, soldiers, and Marines are still required to move, despite challenges in the economy.
The financial trends have gotten much worse, and a lot of that is because of COVID. COVID has been a real financial harm to military families. That and the fact that inflation and housing is going up. So when you're forced to move, as you are with the military, into higher and higher placed areas where there may not be housing stock because we stopped building houses during the pandemic, we have military families living in RVs and pop-up trailers.
Even so, the Blue Star survey suggests job satisfaction remains high among troops and their families. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Hundreds of workers at a Chevron refinery in the Bay Area are on strike. The United Steelworkers Union went on strike at midnight after workers at the Richmond refinery voted down Chevron's most recent contract offer, which included a 2.5% raise. The union is demanding a 5% salary increase to keep up with inflation and the area's high cost of living.
We're inspired by the Amazon workers, by the Starbucks workers, by the nurses, by the teachers. We're watching that, you know, and I think that other working people are starting to feel that groundswell of workers standing up for themselves and understanding their worth and that they deserve better.
Chevron said refinery operations will continue despite the strike. While gas prices are dropping nationally, they're still on the rise here in California. In San Diego County, the average price for a gallon of regular gas rose by just over a penny to a record $5.92. Today marks the 27th straight day of increases, with the average now $1.17 more than we were paying just 1 month ago. Netflix knows many of its users share their password, and it's finally doing something about it. Jeremy Roth has a look at the major changes the streaming platform is rolling out and why others may soon follow.
Netflix is cracking down on password sharing. The streaming giant is forcing users who share a Netflix account but do not live in the same household to set up and pay for their own account or formally be added to the main account at an extra cost.
They're trying to hit profitability. They're trying to generate free cash flow.
Experts say the experiment is a bit of a risk as Netflix aims to show its investors that there's growth in both revenue and users.
There's a delicate balancing act that they have to figure out, where they keep their existing users happy and engaged. Password sharing is definitely a part of that, but it's very clear that you're getting at least $1 more per user per quarter. And with 220 million users around the world, that could end up being substantial revenue on a monthly basis.
So far, the test feature is only being rolled out in Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru, but news of the password crackdown landed like a bomb on Twitter, with scores of users voicing frustrations and posing questions, like how Netflix plans to deal with unique family scenarios, such as college kids on their parents' accounts. Netflix says it will see how the features work in the 3 markets before potentially rolling them out to the rest of the world. And experts say, depending on user reaction, other popular streaming platforms could soon follow suit.
All of them have in mind that they can probably go as high, $20 or higher, right? That over time they can just continue to escalate it, because if they do a better job serving users, then they can start charging more.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Jeremy Roth.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Russian invasion, the devastating picture from Kyiv and Mariupol. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's another look at today's top stories. Thousands of grocery workers across Southern California started voting today on whether to authorize their union to call a strike. It comes amid continued contract negotiations with the owners of stores including Ralph's and Vaughn's, Pavilions, Albertsons. Officials with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union said results are expected to be announced on Sunday. And today marks 2 years of Title 42, a controversial Trump-era policy that blocks asylum at the border. Border officials have used the policy to turn asylum seekers away more than 1.2 million times. Since President Biden took office, more than 9,000 of these people have been victims of violent crime, according to Human Rights First. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.